In today's video, we're going to talk about automation testing with Cypress. In the previous videos, we talked about using Selenium, but today we're going to talk about using Cypress instead. So Cypress is a modern end-to-end testing framework primarily designed for web applications. It enables developers and QA professionals to write, execute, and maintain tests for the web applications, ensuring that the user interface and functionality behave as expected. Cypress is known for its simplicity, fast execution, and developer-friendly features. So here are some of the key features for Cypress. The first is end-to-end testing. Cypress focuses on end-to-end testing, ensuring that an application works as intended from a user's perspective, interacting with every component from the UI to the backend services. The second feature is real browser execution. Unlike other testing frameworks that simulate browser behavior, Cypress runs tests in real browsers, providing an accurate representation of how users interact with the web application. The third key feature is automatic waiting. Cypress automatically waits for commands and assertions to complete, meaning you don't have to manually write wait commands for elements to load. And the final key feature of Cypress is time travel. Cypress takes screenshots as your tests run. You can step back in time to see what happened at each step, making debugging easier. So some of the benefits of using Cypress. The first is developer-centric. Cypress provides great debugging tools and is designed to be highly integrated with developer workflows, enabling developers to write tests as they code. Cypress also has fast feedback loop. The Cypress test runner allows developers to see the test results instantly as they write or modify tests, ensuring faster feedback. Cypress also contains modern JavaScript framework support. Cypress works well with modern JavaScript frameworks like React, Angular, and Vue, supporting their specific patterns and component lifestyle cycles. Cypress does not require additional setup for WebDriver or browser drivers. Simply install Cypress via npm and it's ready to use. With built-in retry mechanisms and automatic waits, Cypress tests are more reliable and less flaky compared to other end-to-end testing tools. And finally, Cypress comes with extensive and well-organized documentation that guides users through installation, writing tests, and advanced usage. So we mentioned that previously we looked mostly at Selenium, and today we're looking at Cypress. So I'm just going to do a quick comparison between Selenium and Cypress. So for the execution environment, Cypress runs directly in the browser and the same run loop as the application under test, while Selenium controls the browsers externally. For language support, Cypress only supports JavaScript, so that's the downside. But Selenium supports multiple languages like Java, Python, C#, and so on. Cypress is more developer-friendly with a built-in interactive test runner, whereas Selenium follows a more traditional approach with drivers and WebDriver APIs. Now, here are the typical use cases for Cypress. For example, UI testing. You want to validate that user interfaces behave as expected under various conditions. There's also end-to-end testing. So you want to simulate real user interactions from navigating the web app to interacting with UI components. And then there's also API testing. So you want to test backend services by intercepting requests and validating responses using Cypress intersect. And then there's also integration testing, where you want to test how different components of an application integrate with each other. Cypress is a powerful tool that simplifies end-to-end testing for modern web applications, helping ensure the applications work seamlessly from the user's perspective. So here's a brief introduction of how you can install Cypress. So for this project that we're going to show you today, first you're going to have to install Visual Studio Code, and then you're going to have to create a folder within VS Code, and then in the terminal, you'll have to install Cypress through npm. And these are the three commands that you use. Okay, so now I'm going to walk you through how to set up your own project, and then maybe we can see some examples as well. So the first thing you want to do is you want to click Open Folder, and then I'm going to store this under Cypress right here, and I'm going to call it, create a new folder for this video, so video 1. And then I'm going to select this folder, and then now I have this folder. So now to install Cypress in your new folder package, what you can do is you can install it directly in terminal. So you can go to open up your terminal by going to the terminal, new terminal. And then the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to type npm install Cypress, and then dash dash save dev. Okay, so go ahead and enter that, and then it'll take some time for you to install it, but since I already have npm installed, Cypress installed earlier, this was really quick for me. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do npm audit fix dash dash force to see if there's any issues. And so there's no problems, so everything is good. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do npm init. And this will be good for a configuration later on. So I'm going to name this package video. Version 1 is good. Description will be Cypress tutorials. And then this is good. No test command, no git repository, no keywords. Author will be ADM Lucid. No license. And there you go. So now that we have this package, the next thing we can do now is we can do npx Cypress open. And what this will do is this will open another browser. And I'm just going to drag it over. So this is what I opened on my other window. And we have two things here now. We have E2E testing with component testing. Today I want to show you E2E testing. So end-to-end testing. So I'm going to click this. And now you have all these different things. So configuration files, we added the following files to your project. So they added some configuration files for Cypress. They also added Cypress support, E2E test, JavaScript files, command files, and so on. So you just click continue, and then they'll add that to your folder. So I'm going to do this in Chrome, but there's some other options as well. For example, Edge, Electron, which is the one that they ship, and then Firefox. So I'm just going to do Chrome. So start E2E testing in Chrome. And then what I'm going to do is, since this project is new, they're going to give you two options. You start creating your own specs, your own tests, or you can use their template test. So what I'm going to do for the sake of this demo is I'm going to show you some of the features of Cypress. So go ahead and click scaffold example test. Okay, I got it. And now is the example test that they give you. So before I go into there, I want to show you what the folder now looks like. So if I go back to here, we see that there's a Cypress folder now, and they created all these different subfolders and this config file as well. So I'm going to go ahead and run this to-do for you. So while you're running Cypress, what it'll actually do is it'll run it in the browser, and then it'll have this on the side. So it's really intuitive web interface for you to use. And you can see that it'll run here. So this is Chrome. It'll run here in Chrome. And then right here, it'll show you the history of everything you did. So for example, this one is for to-do list. And I can look at this example. So I can open up the example and I can see what it's doing. So this is displays two to-do list items by default. So if I click that, it'll show you what it did. So, and if I hover each of these, it'll show you that this is what it is. And then it'll show you how it goes through different steps. I can also click this one to show you other stuff as well, and so on and so on. So this is one of the basic examples. I'm going to show you a little bit more advanced example. So using actions right here. So go ahead and run this by clicking it. And this one will basically test various different actions. For example, typing, blurring, clearing, submitting, clicking, checking, selecting, scrolling, triggering, scroll to as well. And this one uses this thing right here, which gives you all these different options. And so if you scroll through this, this tutorial is really nice and really interesting for you to look through. For example, if I click the typing one, I can go here and we can see that it'll type stuff into the web page on the side to my right here. But yeah, so this is Cypress. Cypress is really intuitive. It uses this browser right here. And for this video right now, I just did this so that you would understand how to use Cypress and how to set up your project. In the next videos that we'll make, we'll go through more in-depth tutorials on how to make your own Cypress test for the future. If you enjoyed this video, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next time. In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can run your first Cypress automation test. So this is a continuation of the previous video, so if you haven't watched the previous video, I would suggest you go watch that video first. So from the previous video, after setting up your Cypress project, this is what the folder structure looks like in our project. And so we have several different folders that I want to bring to your attention. So the first folder is E2E, and this is the folder that you'll be putting all your testing scripts in. So later in this video, we'll be putting all our user test scripts within this folder. The second thing I want to bring to your attention is under the folder fixtures, you have this file called example.json. And in this file, you're going to have the data that you're going to be using in your automation testing. And so, for example, this can include your user login data and some other stuff as well. Under the folder support, you have two more different files that are pretty important. And these are customer functions. And so these you'll see later on that we have to modify in ourselves in order to run our test. And finally, you have your Cypress config file as well, and this is for configuring the test. And so these folders are very important for your test script in Cypress. So what we'll be doing in this video is we'll first be adding a folder called My Scripts under the E2E folder. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add our own script to test our own things. And generally, these scripts, they follow this sort of format. So their content contains some describe and then some if statements for different tests. And then what we're going to be doing is we're also going to configure our project by setting the base URL to the URL that we'll be visiting. And within the commands.js, we're also going to be adding some login functions that we can use. And you see here, these login functions will allow you to log in and authenticate within a page. And so here I have what is open. So this is basically the project that we were left off with after setting up this project for Cypress. And so let's just go through some general structuring of this project first. So first we notice that there's an E2E folder. And within the E2E folder, we actually have two folders already. And this is the Getting Started folder and the Advanced Examples folder. And these two folders contain different tests that you can run. And these are examples that come with Cypress. And we showed you how these ran last time in our previous video. Now, we'll be adding our own folder on this E2E folder to create our own test scripts in this video. The second thing is under the folder fixture right here, you have the example.json folder right here. And you see this contains things such as name, email, and body, but we'll show you how this works later. You also have the folder support. And within the folder support, you have commands.js and e2e.js. And these two files are important as well. And then finally, you have cypress.config.javascript file as well, which sets the configuration for this project. So the first thing we're going to be doing is I'm going to be going under E2E, and I'm going to create a folder called My Script. So I click create new folder, and I'm just going to name it My Script. And now within this folder, let's start with our first test. So I'm going to create a new file, and it's going to be a JavaScript file. I'm going to name it adm.lucid.cy.javascript. Now I will create that. I'm not going to put anything in here first. I'm going to first configure everything else first. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this example.json file, and I'm going to think if I want, and I'm going to see if I want to add anything into this file. For this video, we're not going to be using this file, but in the future videos, if you needed some data, then you would put it in this example.json file. So I'm going to go ahead and close this because I won't be modifying that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go under the support folder, and I'm going to open the commands.js. And for commands.js, I will be adding something in here. And I'm going to add that first. So I'm going to write Cypress dot commands dot add, and then I'm going to add the login feature. So this will be login. And then actually I'm going to add it here. So this will be email and password, which is what we'll pass in. And then we'll do this. And I'll actually reformat this so it looks proper. And then within here, what we'll be doing in this function. So the first thing we'll do is we'll go to the URL. So we'll set this. This is relative URL. So I'm just going to enter this URL for now. It'll make sense later. After I set the base URL in our project. Then I'm going to do get, and then it'll be input email, and then dot type will be email, and then get, it'll be input password, dot type password, oops, typo right here, and then get, we'll do login dash submit. So I already know the class or the ID of this button, so I'm just gonna hard code it, and then we'll just click the submit button, and then this will basically input our email, input our password, and then we'll basically click the submit button afterwards. And so this is the login function I'll be using. So that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. The next thing I'm going to edit is the E2E file right here. And so this E2E file, I'm not going to edit anything, but I want to bring to your attention this line statement right here. This basically imports your commands for later on. So this will import this command so that you can run it in the project. So I'm not going to edit anything here. So these two are now done with. The final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set our base URL to something different so that we can save some code later on. So I'm going to set base URL, and I'm going to set that to basically, let me set it to https www.admlucid.com. Yeah, and then I'll add a comma after. Go. And so we have the base URL. And so now the project knows that this is the base URL, and this will be what we start with. Okay, so now we can finally go to our script and write some code and some tests. So let me start with a simple example. So I'm going to first do this and have the syntax. So this will be Cypress. I'm going to name it Cypress test. And I'm not going to pass any parameters into here. I'm going to do that. There we go. Then I'm going to start with my first test. So I'm going to write it. And this will be navigate to ADM Lucid. So I'm going to name this navigate to ADM Lucid. I'm going to do this. Pass that, do this. Oops, I made a syntax error. So actually I did not. So I'll do actually. Do that. And this should close that right there. And within here, I have two options, two methods that I can use to basically visit the same website. So first thing I can do is I can type the full URL. Basically, that is https www.admlucid.com. But one thing that you have to remember is we set our base URL to this. So another thing you can do is you can just do visit and then just set the base URL as what you want to visit. So I'm actually going to comment out this first part and show you that it works by just visiting the base URL. And then I'm going to do some assert statements to make sure that I'm looking at the right page. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do .should. So this basically is some assertion. And then I'm going to see if it contains, if the URL contains the text ADM Lucid. And so how am I doing that? I'm basically saying grab the URL and this should contain ADM Lucid within it. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a different statement. So should as well, but this time I'm going to use equals. So this is not contains, this is equals. So we're equating that the title on the homepage is this right here. There we go. And then the next thing I want to do, so this is the first test. And then the second test I'm going to write, same syntax, write it. And I'll name my test. This will be logging into ADM Lucid. no parameters, do this, that, and then I'm just going to do login. And what is login? Well, this we actually passed in as a parameter from this commands right here. So this is login. And so we can just type .login and basically it'll use that command. And so the two parameters we have is basically test2, I'm going to use this url.com. And then the next thing we can do is we can just write some random password. So I want this to fail. So this I expect to fail as well. So here we go. So this is what we have, and then we can save this. So now how do you run this? Well, what you can do is you can just write npx. I'm just going to clear this line. So I'm going to write npx Cypress and then open. So it will open up Cypress. I'm going to go to E2E testing for this video. I'm going to use Chrome because that's what I prefer. And then now we have it open. So these are the two folders that come as examples, and this is the folder that we want. So I'm going to open up this folder. It'll run both tests. So basically, for the first test, it'll assert if this is true, if it includes ADM Lucid, and it finds that it is true. For the second statement, we actually see that it's not true. It doesn't equal to homepage ADM Lucid. And so that's actually an error that we found. And that's something that we'll try to fix later on now. And then in order for the login, we see that it will click here, it finds the input email, it'll type the email, it'll find the input password slot, it'll type the password, it'll find the button, it'll click it, and it'll try to submit it. But this is an invalid login attempt. But nonetheless, this test still works because it's just an invalid login attempt, but it's still good. And so we can try to fix this statement here now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head back to here, and I'm going to look at this code right here now. It says that this is invalid. So what I can do is I can see what is wrong with it. I'm actually going to copy and paste the text that I think is correct. So actually, let me go back to here and check out the home page right here. So this is the home page. Right here is this is the assertion error. So I'm going to see this. This is the error that we get. So I'm actually going to go here and let me paste the proper one. And so yeah, we're going to try to spot the error here, and we see that this is cy.url should contains ADM Lucid. This one is also URL should equal to this. But we actually want to check if the title is equal to this. So if I switch to title, this should work now. So I'm going to go ahead and run, go to my Cypress test right here. And I'm going to check out this. I'm going to rerun it, all my tests by using this button. And now we see that the first one, it works properly. It's able to assert that the URL is contains ADM Lucid and that the homepage title is equal to this. So yeah, so this is an example of how you can write your own ADM Lucid code. You can write your own Cypress code for automation testing. We'll subscribe to our channel because we'll be posting some more videos of more in-depth tests as well. If you found this video helpful, please give this video a like, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you. In today's video, we're going to show you some core commands in Cypress Automation Testing. So this is an example of some core commands. So we'll show you some core commands. So first we'll show you how to visit a website, how to grab a web element, and then how to perform different actions to it. So for visiting a URL of your choice, for example, admlucid.com, what you can do is you can use cy.visit, and then you can enter the URL that you want to visit. Another way you can do this is if you have a configured base URL already, then you can just use cy.visit and you can just use a dash, and that will bring you straight to the base URL. Next, for getting web elements, we have three main ways. The first is we use the hashtag to indicate that we're getting a web element by its ID. Or we can grab a web element by its class by using the period. Another thing we can do is we can use contains. And what contains does is it searches for that web element, and it searches for the web element with text that matches the text in the contains. For example, if it's a submit button, it'll search for submit to find the submit button. And so this is for finding web elements. Once you find the web elements, you can then perform actions. So some actions you can perform are click, you can double click, you can right click, you can clear, type, check for checkboxes, you can uncheck it as well, and then you can select options as well. You should note that you can link these different actions together as well. For example, if you find the web element and you do dot clear, it will first clear that web element, and then you can do dot type behind it to type within that web element in the same command. And so I'm going to show you a little bit of this later on. So I'm going to show you some examples of some core functions. And right now I have my project open. I'm going to go under the E2E folder and under my scripts folder, and I'm going to add a new file. And this file I'm going to name web elements.sci.javascript. And within this function, I'm going to start writing some tests. And so the first test I'm going to write is I'm going to write scribe. So this is the basics I'm going to do. I'm going to write Cypress test for this one. And then I'm not going to pass anything. So I'm going to do this. And there we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to do the autocorrect is not working as I would like. So I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to do this one. Will be navigate to web element text what. So this is what this will do, and then this, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to write what this does. And so the first thing I wanted to do is I want to use sci. The autocorrect is being very annoying right now. But I'm going to do sci, and I'm going to do dot. I don't know why it keeps doing that, but sci dot, and then I'm going to do once, and I'm going to write uncaught exception. And then I'm going to say set this as false. And so basically what this does is it continues even if there is an exception that is caught. And so what I'm going to do within here is I'm going to write visit, and I'm going to visit this URL that we have. So it's basically www.admlucid.com. And then I'm going to do my test. So I'm going to do sci.contains. So I'm going to find the web element that contains tests, and I'm going to click it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do sci.contains web elements, and then I'm going to do .click, and I'm going to click this next thing, but I'm going to set the parameter force as true. So even if it's not open, for example, or if the web element is not active, it'll still click it nonetheless. And then I'm going to use a get statement for text1. And what this will do is I'll clear it, and I'll type, for example, welcome to Cypress testing. And that's the first thing I'll do. So let me save that. And then I'm going to run npx Cypress open. I'm going to go to E2E testing. I'm going to use Chrome. And I'll show you our first test that we've written right here. So it's under web elements right here. And so let me reload this. Let me go back and save my progress. Make sure that I have everything saved. Web elements up. And so I'm here and I noticed an error in my code. So I actually used a round bracket, but I need to use a curly bracket for this parameter right here. So switch that to a curly bracket. Go ahead and save this. Now let me see if this works now. So go ahead and rerun these tests. And now we're basically getting the error where no commands were issued in this test. And so I noticed another typo, cypress.visit right here. So this needs to be visit. Let me check if there's any other typos. Contains is good. This is contains, and then we're looking for these web elements right here. And so go ahead and save this again. And this time it runs as we want. So if I go through each of these, first it goes to this URL. It'll click test right there. It'll click it. And then we'll basically look for this web element right here. And it'll force click it. As you see, this web element is actually not active and you can't find it. But it's actually one of these elements right here. And so it requires you to force click it even if it's not active on the page at the moment. And then we'll basically load the new page. And then it'll get text one right here, and it'll clear it, and then type in welcome to Cypress in here. And so that's what the first test does. And so it works as expected. Now let me add another one. So I'm going to name this one enter text to text area. And so since some of the code will be redundant, I'm going to copy and paste that over to save us all some time. So I'm going to copy some over right now. Right here. And so basically we're allowing errors and exceptions to occur in order to move on to the next test. And we're also visiting the same URL, and we're also clicking test as well, and we're force clicking this web elements. But the one thing that we're doing different now is we're going to get basically by class text area 3. And what we'll do is we'll clear this text area, and then we will type, we call these action commands or something like that. And I will save this, and you'll see that it will automatically load on the Cypress. And so right here, enter text into text area. We see we're going here, we're clicking, and we're going to this new page. We're getting this text area here. We're clearing it, and then we're typing into the text area right here as well. Into this text area right here. Yeah, and you see it's right here. It's in the text area. Okay, so let me write another test now. So the next one will be it, and then we'll do, this will be click on button 1, and comma, we'll do this is equals to this. And what we'll do is, we'll copy and paste some things over, some of the redundant code, because we'll be using that web element page the whole time. And this time what we're going to do is we're going to get, and we're going to use the ID, so button 1, and then what we're going to tell it to do is click it. And I'm actually going to write our final test first before I run it all so we can see what's going on. So it click on choose file 3, and then we'll go ahead and we'll paste over this redundant code, and then what we'll do is we'll get file 3 by class. So it's like this, and then what we'll do is we'll click and we'll use the force is true, like that. And here we go, save it, it'll load, and then we'll go back here and we see a click button one. They both work as expected. So this one, what we're doing is we're getting onto this page, we're clicking this button 1, and after we click it, you'll notice that the button will change states. For the third one, where we choose third file, again, we get to this page, we'll go to this page right here, we'll get this file right here, and then what we'll do is we'll click it, and basically this will change the state of this button as well. So if I show you, this will change the state of this button. And so those are the 4 different commands that we show you. So we can access by ID, we can access by class, we can access by contains as well, right here. And then we have different actions that we can perform. For example, clear, type, click, click is equal to true. And there's some other ones that you can use as well. But yeah, so these are some of the core commands in Cypress that you can use to perform your automation testing. If you found this video helpful, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next time. In today's video, we're going to talk about common assertion methods that you can use in Cypress automation testing. So let's start with some basic assertions and then talk about implicit versus explicit assertions. So to begin with, basic assertions, we have basically checking the visibility, existence, and state of elements using should and expect. And right here we have an example. For example, we can use side.get the button 1, and then we can use should, and then we'll have this value for button 1. We can also use side.get button 1 should be visible, and then click it afterwards. This is another example of an assertion statement that we can use. We can use this expect right here using this sort of syntax to do our assertion. So next I'm going to talk about the difference between implicit and explicit assertions. And so to begin with, implicit assertions are a powerful feature of Cypress that simplify test scripts and help ensure smooth and reliable text execution without unnecessary code overhead. So this is very simple. You don't have to explicitly state anything. You just simply use side.get or side.contains. On the other hand, explicit assertions allow testers to precisely control and define the behavior they want to verify. So Cypress uses chai-jq, and sin-on-chai assertion libraries to write these explicit validations. And this is an example of an assertion that is explicit right here. So on this page, I have several different common assertion methods that you can use. Right here we have exist. So to check if something exists, we can do .should exist, or we can do expect my variable to exist. For empty, if you want to check if something's empty, then you can do .should be empty, or you can do expect the emptiness to be empty. Or to check something's ID, you can use .should have .id for foo, or you can use expect that certain ID to have ID foo. And then to be called once with exactly, this is something else that you can do, and so you can use .should have been called once with exactly args, or you can have expect to be called once with exactly args as well. So these are different assertion methods that you can use in Cypress. So now I'm going to show you how we can set up a project using Cypress to explore these different assertion methods. So this is a project that I have open. I'm just going to create a new script for all the assertions that we talked about today. So I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to name it Assertions. And within this file, let's write some different assertions that we can use for our script. So first, using the syntax of Cypress, I'm going to do describe. So describe, and we're going to name this Cypress test, and then this is like that. And then now we'll do it. We'll do our first test. So for our first test, let's name it navigate to web elements and assert them using should. So that's what we'll be doing. Now let's do what we want to do. So first I'm going to do side.once, side.once, and then we'll use uncaught exception, and then we'll let this we'll set this as this, so that if we have any error in any of these specific tests, it'll continue to the next one. And then what we'll do is we'll do site.visit our base URL. So our base URL is set as adiumlucid.com right now. And then what we'll do is we'll do site.contains tests, and we'll do .click those. We'll .click that element that contains tests. And now what we'll do is we'll do site.contains, and then we'll find this element called web elements. So find something that contains web elements. And then what we'll do is we'll also click this. But in this one, we're going to use the argument force is equal to true, so that even if it's not active, we're still clicking it. Next, what we'll do is we'll do sci.get h1, and then we'll do dot contains web elements and locators, and then we'll also do sci.get h1 dot should have dot text web elements and locators. So we're checking that this one will have this h1 element will have this basic web elements and locators as the text inside it. And so we're using have text for this assertion. Now what we'll do is we'll do another one. So assert something else. We'll do if sci.get submit 3 dot should have dot value submit 3. Then we'll do sci.get dot submit 3 dot click and then finally we'll do sci.get. So now we'll do it has this submit 1, and then we'll do dot should. So we'll do another assertion right here, and this one will be have dot value. We'll check that it has the value submit 1, and if it does, we'll click it. And so this is what we're testing here. So first, we're basically visiting the site, we're clicking these two different elements, and then we're finding the first header, and then we're seeing if the header contains this text in the header. Next, what we're doing is we're going to this submit 3 button, and then we're checking that this has text submit 3. And if that's true, then we're going to click that button. And then finally, we're going to check for this ID, submit 1, and then we're checking if it has basically the text, submit 1, and then we're clicking it. So this is what we're doing. Now let's run this and see how it runs. So I can do npx Cypress start. Cypress open. Go ahead, do E2E testing, go to Chrome, and then we'll go to our little test right here, assertions, and we'll see it run. So first we visit this web page, and then it goes through all this really fast. So I'll go through one of it at a time. It'll click each of these elements right here, and then it'll bring us to this site. Now we will basically do an assertion to check if this contains web elements and locators, and it says it does. And then the next thing we'll do is we'll find the button contains submit 3, and then because it does, it'll then click the button like that. Now after that, it'll get submit 1 button, and then it'll basically click that submit 1 button as well. And so at the end, we'll see that the submit 1 button is no longer there. So this is what we have so far. Let's run a few more assertions and see how they go. So now since you know the basic format, I'm actually just going to copy over some assertions over, and I'll walk through it with you. So in this one, what we're going to do is we're going to navigate to golf and assert them using should. So first we have this statement, and then we'll visit the base URL, and then we'll do whatever contains test, we'll click that. And then whatever contains golf course underscore golf underscore store course, we'll click that using force is true. And then what we'll do is we'll get the select ID or the select class, and then we'll find option, and then we'll say that this should have a length of 11. And then finally, we'll find the class for button, and then we'll do the first one, and then we'll say that we'll see if this is visible and click it. So that's what we have so far. Let me show you how this works. So I'm actually going to close this, and now we'll run this again. E2E testing, Chrome. And we'll go down to here, go back to assertions. We'll check out the navigate to golf now. And we see that it goes through each of those steps by clicking those things in the beginning. And then it'll basically find the select button, it'll find options, and then it'll see if this has a length of 11 or more. And then it'll basically find this button, and then it'll see if the button is visible and assert for these. So that's that. Let's do another one. In this one, we're navigating to the web elements and asserting them using expect. And so we're doing the same stuff here, going to web elements. And then after there, we're doing these three different assertions using expect. So the first one was we're asserting that this text equals to web elements.locator using the equal here and this. And then we're also expecting that this text right here contains this right here for H2. And then for the button one, we're expecting it to be visible. So let me save this. We'll actually add another one and show you how it goes for both of them. And then let me add a little bit more onto the end of this actually. So I'll add another test here, right here. And this is, we'll get the text checkbox here, and then we'll check and expect that this is unchecked. So save that. Let me show you how this runs. So this is the third one. We visit this website. You see, we click all of these to load this new page. And then in this new page, we're asserting that H1 contains web elements and locators. H2 contains childcare registration right here. And then we're going to the buttons. We're seeing if they're visible and exist. So we check if the button's visible and exist and the checkbox. And so yeah, so this is assertions. I hope you found this video helpful. We talked about different assertions that you can use. We showed you assertions using the should method right here. We showed you assertions using should methods here as well, down here. And then we showed you assertions using the expect method right here, right here. If you found this video helpful, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for listening. In today's video, we're going to talk about using Cypress with XPath locators. So by default, Cypress uses CSS selectors to locate elements. So this can include the element's ID or class. However, if you prefer XPath, especially for complex DOM structures, you can use an XPath plugin to enhance Cypress. XPath selectors are particularly useful when CSS selectors are insufficient or when you need to traverse complex elements with hierarchies. So in order to use XPath in Cypress, these are the steps that you need to follow. First, install Cypress XPath plugin. You need to install the Cypress XPath plugin to enable XPath support. Run the following command in your project. So npm install -d Cypress XPath, and this will install the package or plugin. After that, what you will do is you'll configure it, Cypress to use XPath. So within your Cypress project or within your script, for example, in this script right here, you basically just say require Cypress XPath. And what this will do is this will import and configure this Cypress script to use XPath plugin. Now, the next thing you do is now you'll have to write test using the XPath plugin. And so after installing the plugin, you can use the command sci.xpath command to select elements using XPath. And this is an example of it. So on this page, I'll show you a few more examples using XPath. So first is you can select elements by their attribute for XPath. So here we have sci.xpath, and then we basically input the attribute of the XPath, and then we'll type this element. The next thing we do is we do sci.xpath, and then what we'll do is we'll do contains, for example, if you want to find it based off of partial text, for this you can do basically contains text welcome. So it contains the text welcome, and it should be visible. Something else you can do is you can traverse up and down the DOM structure. And so for this one, what we're basically doing is we're searching for this menu, and then after we find the menu, we're finding the option A within the menu, and then we're clicking that. Cypress also XPath also allows you to check multiple different conditions. For example, you can check if this input is both a type checkbox and also that it's already been checked already. So there's two different conditions right here. You can also work with index-based selection. So right here, we use XPath to get all the different classes items with class menu item. And within that list of all those different menu items, we just select the first one and then we click it. So here are some more things about XPath. We're just going to compare XPath and CSS selectors. So in terms of readability, XPath can be harder to read, and CSS selectors are a bit more straightforward and simple. In terms of flexibility, XPath supports traversing up and down the DOM, while CSS selectors are limited to downward traversal. In terms of performance, XPath is a bit slower in some browsers, and CSS selectors are faster. In terms of use case, XPath is ideal for dynamic elements or complex paths, and then CSS selectors work well for static and simple structures. And then here are some best practices for using XPath in Cypress. The first is use CSS selectors when possible. CSS selectors are faster and easier to maintain. And then for XPath, you just use that for a complex DOM traversal. So when elements are deeply nested or require complex relationships. Be cautious with element indexes because these XPath indexes, they can change if the DOM structure is updated. And then combine XPath with assertions. Always assert that the expected element exists and is visible to avoid false positives. In this next part of the video, I'll show you how you can use XPath in your own project. So right here, I have my VS Code open, and I'm just going to create a new script under E2E. And I'm going to name this XPath. .cy.js. Now within this script, the first thing I have to do is I have to type require Cypress XPath. And note that I already installed this plugin, so if you haven't done that already, you should go ahead and install this plugin using the command I showed you earlier. Now, what I'll do is I'll start writing some code. So first, I'm going to use the describe statement. Cypress test. And I'll begin with my first one. So first one will be navigate to web element text 1. And we'll do Cypress once uncaught exception, and if this happens, then we'll just let it continue. And then we'll do side.visit HTTP. We'll go to this URL right here. http emlucid.com. So this is the website that we'll be visiting. After that, we'll do site.contains test. Do dot click. And then we'll do site.contains web elements dot click force is true. And then now we'll basically use Cypress. So what we've done so far is we're visiting this website, and then we're basically clicking on tests, and then we're clicking on web elements even if it's not active. And then within this new page that we are now at, we'll basically look for the XPath using this. So I'm just going to copy and paste the XPath over. Over here. And then what we'll do is we'll clear here. And then what we'll do is we'll type welcome to Cypress test. And so with this, I want to show you how you can get this XPath. So first, let me show you here. Let me show you in this browser right here. Let me show you in this browser right here how we can get the XPath. So right here, we have, for example, this button right here. You can just right click, click inspect, and then go to the button, right click, and then do copy. And then you can copy the full XPath or the partial XPath, depending on how complex your project is. Okay, so let me go back. And I just want to show you what this does if you were using CSS selectors. You would just do, if you wanted to use CSS selectors, you can just do it like this. So I have it commented out, but this does exactly the same thing. You're finding this, ID test text one. So I'm actually going to go ahead and paste a couple more tests so we can look at some other tests at action. So this one, we're basically entering text into text area. So we're going to that web page again, and then we're using the Cypress XPath to find that text area, and then we're entering some text. And then we'll do two more. So right here, we're clicking on button 1. So we're going to that web page, and then we're clicking on button 1. And then finally, in the last one, we are clicking on choose file 3. And so what we do is we go to that web page again, and then we finding this choose file 3 by their XPath right here, and then we're clicking that as well. And so let me go ahead and save this, and I will close this previous session right here, and then I'll do npx Cypress open. We'll go to E2E testing. We'll go to Chrome. And then within here, we can go to basically our Cypress test XPath right here. And then it'll basically load the XPath test. It says nothing was found at the moment. It's probably because I didn't save. So let me go back here, save that. Can't resolve XPath, Cypress in XPath. So it's saying that we're getting this error right here. And what we can do is let's make sure that we have it installed. So go ahead and terminate. Go ahead and terminate this. Yes. And then what we'll do is we'll run the commands again for XPath. And so we see that it's npm install XPath right here. So I'll go ahead and paste that over. Npm install Cypress XPath. So now we have it installed. And now we should try to run it again to make sure that it's runnable. So Cypress open. And now we will go back down to here, find XPath right here, and now it works. So we were able to import the plugin. So I'll go through each of these. So in the first one, we're navigating to web element text 1, and then ultimately we're typing welcome to Cypress test right here. And we're using this XPath element to locate this text area. Second one, we're entering text into the text area. So again, we're going to that web page, we're finding the element for text area, and then we're clearing and typing these items. Third one, we're clicking on button 1 right here, and it's basically locating the button 1 with this XPath, and then we're clicking it. Last one, same thing, we're locating using this, and then we're clicking on that right here. And so yeah, so this is basically how you can use XPath to find each of these elements. If you found this video helpful, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for listening. In today's video, we're going to talk about Cypress Automation Testing, and in specific, interacting with web elements. Cypress offers several built-in commands for interacting with various web elements, such as buttons, input fields, drop-downs, checkboxes, radio buttons, and more. These interactions help simulate real user behavior and validate that the UI and functionality behave as expected. So first, let's talk about interacting with buttons. Cypress allows you to click buttons, check for their visibility, and validate their states. So to click a button, you can use these commands, .click. To check a button's state, you can use should to see if the state is not be disabled, or so on. For handling input fields, Cypress provides commands to type text into input fields, clear them, and validate their values. Typing into an input field, you'll use the type command, whereas clearing an input field, you'll use clear, and validating the input field, you should use should. Interacting with checkboxes is also another option. Cypress allows you to check or uncheck checkboxes, and you just use the commands check, uncheck, and should to validate the checkbox state. For handling radio buttons, you can select an option and validate the selection. So you can check this option right here using this input option right here, and then you can validate that state using should. For selecting options from drop-down menus, it's made easy by using select. And so for selecting an option by value, use select, and then you can input option 2, but you can also validate the selected option. So for modals and pop-ups can also be handled using Cypress commands such as sci.contains or event listeners. Clicking a button inside a modal, you can use the click button. And then for handling browser alerts, you can use this on command. Cypress can interact with links by clicking on them or validating URLs. So you can use click to click on the link, and validate the URL, you'll use should. For advanced interactions like hovering or right-clicking, Cypress provides sci.trigger. For hovering over an element, you can use trigger, mouse over. And for right-clicking an element, you can use .right-click. Since Cypress doesn't natively support iframes, you can use custom commands to interact with elements inside iframes. Accessing an iframe, sci.iframe, you can use this command right here. You can also upload files using sci.attachFile command as well in this example shown here. So best practices for interacting with web elements in Cypress. You should use descriptive selectors using meaningful selectors like status sci attributes to improve test reliability. You should combine assertions with commands to ensure that the element is ready for interaction. And you should also avoid hard waits. Use built-in retries and should instead of arbitrary waits to reduce flakiness. You should also handle dynamic content gracefully. Ensure elements are loaded and visible before interacting with them. And you should use custom commands for repetitive actions. Encapsulate repetitive logic in custom commands for reusability. In this next part of the video, I'm going to show you how you can write your own code to do these testing and interactions with the web elements. So right here I have a folder open. I'm going to create a new file to do this. So under my scripts, I'm going to create this, click new file, and I'm going to name it interact with .cy.js. And within here, I'm first going to say require the package Cypress XPath. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do describe Cypress test. And then within here, I'm going to start with our first test. Click on button 1. And then with here, I'm going to do this so that it continues the test even if we catch an error. Top exception. Then I'm going to do this. False. Then I will visit our base URL. And then I will check if anything contains tests. And then I will click that. And then I'll see if anything contains web elements. And then what I'll do is I'll click this as well, but I will use the force true tag. And then after that, I will use the get. And then what we're going to get is we're going to get the ID button 1. And then we're going to use should assert that this is not disabled. And if it's not disabled, then what we can do is we can click it. So this is what we're gonna how we're gonna interact with this button. I'll go ahead and save this, and then here I can type npx Cypress open to run the test. And we'll use this one to see our test. Cannot detect test, and let's see what's wrong. It's the syntax error right here. So go back and fix this. Go save this, open this up again, and now it'll do all the stuff. So up until here, we're going to this web page using all those different button clicks. And then right here is when we get the button element. And then this is when we're checking if the button element is not disabled. And then we're clicking it. So there we go. So next I'm going to show you a few more things we can do. And let me show you how it works. So I'm going to add a few more tests. But I'm just going to copy and paste it so we can go through this a little bit quicker. So the first test, we're going to navigate to web element text 1. So we're going to go to this URL by going through these steps here. But then we're going to go to here, the text field 1. We're going to clear it, and we're going to type welcome to Cypress tests. And then what we're going to do is we're going to validate that the value within this text 1 is welcome to Cypress tests. I'm going to add a few more so that this is a little bit quicker. But let me proceed. So in this next one, what we're going to do is we're going to navigate to the web element checkbox 1. And instead, we're going to check it, check if it's unchecked, so validate that it's checked, and then uncheck it, and then validate that it's not checked anymore. And so let me save this and show you how these two work. right here. This will reload. If it doesn't reload, then you just click reload here and it'll reload. So this is basically going to the text element 1. So we'll show you right here, it's getting text element 1 right here, and then it's clearing it and then typing welcome to Cypress text, and then getting the text within here and then validating it. For checkbox, right here, it'll find the checkbox right here. So checkbox right there, it'll check it and then validate it that it's checked, and then get it again, uncheck it, and then validate that it's unchecked now. So that's what we have so far. Now let's look at the next few things that we can do with these. So now we're going to show you how you can work with radio buttons. So for radio buttons, let me show you this. So radio button 3, we're basically finding the radio button, checking that it's not checked, checking it, and then asserting that it becomes checked. And then for some other things we can do is, for example, checking a file. Like, for example, right here, we click on choose file 3. So we go into here, test, we're clicking on it, we're going to web elements, .click, and then we're checking, and then what we'll do is we'll go to here, we'll find this class file 3, select the file, and basically you can import it, update the file. And then I will add one more to show you guys. We're going to do select service. It's going to call select your service. And in this one, again, we're going to the golf course page now, and we're basically selecting from a drop-down, Mexico, and then we're validating that we're actually selecting Mexico within that drop-down. So let me show you how this goes. So now radio button 3, right here, we're basically finding the radio button 3 using the command grid we have. We're seeing that it's not clicked, we're checking it, and then we're validating that is checked. For choose file, again, we're going to find this area right here, and then we're going to update a file, upload a file to that choose file. For select your service, we're basically going to this web page, and then we're basically going to here, clicking select, and then what we're going to do here is we're going to select Mexico, and then we're going to validate that this has Mexico selected, which it does. So now let's add a few more things that we can look at. So I added 3 more right here. I added validate to pop-up text for button 1. So basically you click button 1 after you validate that it's not disabled. And then for the Windows alert, you'll see if you can see if you can assert this using this equal, the button has been disabled for button 1. For handling links, basically you'll visit this link, and then you'll use the URL should include idiom lucid. So we're checking the URL now. For mouse over your service, this is basically hovering over. So once we get to this golf course here, basically what we'll do is we'll right click this thing right here, and then we'll use .getSelect.trigger mouse over as well to see what happens when you hover over your mouse as well. So let's go to validate pop-up right here first. Basically, we see that we go to this button 1. We see that it's not disabled, so we click it. And then now what we see is that this button has been disabled, and that's what we get right here. Moving on to handling links. Again, we go to this URL, we click on one of the links, URLs right here, and then we assert that this web link up here contains idiom lucid within it. For the last one, for mouse over your service, we visit this link right here, and then what we're doing was getting the select button right here, and then we are right-clicking it. And because we can't right-click it, this does not work. And we're catching that error. So that's being caused by this right here. And so this will cause an error, and we expect it because you can't right-click the select. So I'm going to go ahead and actually delete this and then run this again by saving, going back to here, and then we'll see if this works now. So now if we go down to here, after we click select, if we hover over it, it works as you want. So yeah, so these are different ways you can interact with all of these web elements in Cypress. If you found this video helpful, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next time. In today's video, we're going to talk about Cypress Automation Testing, and we're going to talk about working with dynamic content and wait strategies. So, in web applications, elements or data may load dynamically due to asynchronous processes like API calls, animations, or lazy loading. Cypress offers several wait strategies and commands to handle these scenarios effectively, ensuring the tests are reliable and not flaky. So first, there's Cypress's built-in retry mechanism. Cypress automatically retries commands and assertions until the element becomes available or the default timeout is reached, and the default is 4 seconds. This behavior reduces the need for manual waits. For example, in this command, it'll try as many times as it needs to until this dynamic element command becomes available. Or it'll try until 4 seconds, and then if it's not available, then it'll continue. You can also use Cypress wait, and sometimes you need to pause an execution to wait for asynchronous operations like API responses or animations. And so you can use Cypress wait to cautiously avoid flaky tests. And so in this command, this is in milliseconds. So this is actually waiting for 2 seconds. You can also wait for specific elements. So instead of waiting for a fixed time, it's better to wait for elements to be visible or exist in the DOM using should. And so right here, if we use the get loader, then we use .should to see if it not exists or exists. And down here, we're doing the same thing, but to see if it's visible. You can also polling elements with the then command. Use the .then method to check dynamic content inside callbacks, which ensures that assertions only run when elements are ready. And you can do that using this command here. You can also use Cypress wait until for custom polling. Install the Cypress wait until plugin to handle complex wait scenarios, and this is an example of that. You can also handle delayed animations and transitions. So web element animations or CSS transitions can delay element appearance. So use the wait cautiously to ensure the animation completes, or use should assertion with timeouts. You can also handle lazy loading or infinite scroll content. For content that loads as you scroll, use sci.scrollTo to trigger the loading. For example, right here, to trigger lazy loading with scroll, you use scroll to the bottom to get all of the content within the page. You can also look at increasing default timeouts for slow content. So you can stem the command timeout if the content loads slowly due to network delays. And so an example of increasing the command timeout for one command, you can use this command right here by adding timeout 10 seconds right here. And then you can also globally increase the timeouts by configuring in your cypress.config file. And this is the command that you would use. You would set the default command timeout to 10 seconds instead. So the best practices for wait strategies. So prefer to built-in retries. You should use should and get to wait for elements and avoid cypress.wait as much as possible. You should use API stubbing with cy.intercept, and this ensures predictable behavior for dynamic data. You should increase timeouts only when necessary. Use custom timeouts for slow loading elements instead of arbitrary waits. And you should handle flaky tests. Identify flaky elements and adjust your wait strategy to reduce failures. In this next part of the video, we're going to show you how you can code this in your own project. So right here, I have a project open, and I'm actually going to create a new script for interacting for these different wait statements. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to name it wait.cs.cy.js. And within this file, we're going to do a few things. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to require Cypress XPath. And then what we're going to do after is we're going to use describe. We're going to do Cypress test. And after that, what we're going to do this. We're going to use our first test, and we're going to call it sci.get default wait for 4 seconds. So we're just going to show you how it's typically done. So this one, you're not hard coding any waits, and we're just going to use the default for Cypress, which waits 4 seconds for an element to appear. And so I'm going to type this uncaught exception, and this basically just lets our code proceed even if there is any errors. And so go ahead and do this. Oops, actually, this will be false. And then after that, I'm going to visit our base URL using this. And then after that, I'm going to do contains test. And what we're going to do is we're going to click on that. And then we're going to do contains. We're going to find the web elements page. Let's type that as web elements. And then we're going to click that as well, but we're going to use force is equal to true. And so after that, now what we're going to do is we're going to get this button. So button 1 is what it's called, and we're going to say that it should be visible. So we're going to check that it's visible. And then if it is, then we'll click it. So this is by default. This is what it does. This waits 4 seconds by default. And so go ahead and save that. And now let me show you what it looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and type X Cypress open and see if we run it and see what happens. E2E testing. We're going to run it in Chrome. And right here we have the wait. So I'm going to open up that script. And then right here, this is what we have. So first what we did was we visited our base URL, which we set as admlucid.com. We found tests, we clicked that, and then we found web elements to click that, and then that brought us to a new page. In this new page, we found the button, and this button was available after multiple tries within 4 seconds, and then we asserted that it is visible, and then we clicked it. So that's the first way you can do it. There are some other ways you can use wait statements. So this one, we didn't explicitly say any wait statements, but there's some other ones you can do. So for example, in this one, I'm basically doing the same thing, but I'm going to the same page, and then I'm explicitly saying, let's wait 2 seconds. And then what we'll do is we'll get each of these text elements as well. And then we'll clear this text box and then type in this, and then we'll assert that this is typed into this text field. So that's what we're doing for that one. And then let me show you some other ones we can do. So in this one, basically what we're doing is we're going to the same page, and then this one, we're not actually doing any explicit waiting. And so what we're doing is we're going to that page and we're just seeing if each of these are visible, and we're just using the should statement. So we're not saying, we're not using the wait statement, but instead we're saying that let's try to get this, and if it's not available, then we use the assert that it's not visible, and then this will cause a breakage in our code so that we can fix that later. And then we'll check that afterwards. And so instead of using explicit waits, we're using should instead to validate the state of each character. Now, the next thing we'll do is we'll show you another way we can do this. And this one is basically setting the timeout, setting the default, changing the timeout. So in here, we go to this golf course page instead, but this time in this get statement, we're setting the timeout as 10 seconds instead of 4 seconds, which is the default, universal default in general. And so these 4 tests, let me show you how it goes. So this one, we're explicitly saying wait 2 seconds extra. So we load this page, and then we wait 2 seconds, and then we get text field 1, type welcome to Cypress test, and then we'll assert that this is within here. In this one, we're navigating to web elements right here, and then we're clicking, And then what we're doing is we're finding the text boxes using should statements. So we found that this text box is visible. Then this allows us to check it. And then we're doing the same thing for the other ones as well. For this one, we're setting the default wait time by 10 seconds instead of 4 seconds. And so this get statement, when we get the select, it'll actually try it for 10 seconds and see if it can get the select. And if it can, then we'll basically select Mexico within it and then assert that Mexico is selected. And so this is some of the easiest ways that you can use wait statements with Cypress. If you found this video helpful, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for listening. In today's video, we're going to talk about using fixtures in Cypress Automation Testing. So the Fixture command in Cypress is used to load external test data from JSON or other files located in the fixtures folder. It's a powerful feature for data-driven testing, allowing you to reuse data across multiple tests, such as user credentials, API responses, or configuration details. So how to use side fixtures in Cypress? The first thing you have to do is you have to create a Cypress fixture file. So to create a fixture file folder inside your Cypress project, and this is usually created by default for you. Inside the folder, create a JSON file, for example, tester.json, and this is an example. And this is what it might look like inside the JSON file. You'll have your username and your passwords. The second thing to do is to load the fixture data into a test. So use sci.fixture to load the data from the fixture file inside a test. Example is loading data from a fixture file. So this is the example. You're using sci.fixture to load tester.json. And then you load within that tester.json file, you load the other different inputs, for example, the email and the passwords and so on. So the third thing to do is use aliases with sci.fixture. You can alias fixture data using .as to make it accessible across multiple tests or within the same test. So an example is using fixture data with an alias. So this is an example using .as right here. The fourth thing to do is to load non-JSON files. And so although JSON is commonly used, sci.fixture can also load other text-based files such as text files and CSVs. So this is an example where you're loading a text file. You can also use fixtures with API stubs, which is using sci.intercept. Fixtures are often used with sci.intercept to mock API responses during testing. Sci.fixture user right here, this is an example where you use sci.intercept right here. So the best practices for using sci.fixture. The first is to organize fixtures properly. Create subfolders inside the fixtures folder to keep the data organized. Use aliases for reusability. Use .as to make the fixture data accessible across multiple tests. Third thing is to keep fixtures simple. Avoid large or complex data structures in fixtures to keep the test readable and maintainable. And you want to validate text data. Ensure the fixture data matches what is expected by the test environment to avoid unnecessary failures. So now I'm going to show you how you can run it in your own code. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new script under my scripts right here. And I'm going to name it fixture.cy.js. And then within this file, let us do a few things. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to require this package, Cypress XPath. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use describe Cypress test. And I'm going to state that the first thing I'm going to state is before each, I'm going to do side.visit. So we're going to, before every running anything here, we're going to visit the base URL that we specified into our paths. And then now I'm going to use fixtures. So before I do that, I'm going to go under my fixtures folder right here. So it's under right here, and I'm going to create a new folder. And this new file is going to be, we're going to call it country.json. And within country.json, what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste some information. So I'm going to paste this information right here, and then I'm going to go ahead and save this. Now, what I'm going to do is within my fixtures file, I'm actually going to call upon that. So let me show you how we can do that. So I'll use it. Then I'll call it select a country from sci.fixture. Then we'll have that syntax. And then we'll do sci.once uncaught exception false. And then what we'll do is we'll do sci.contains test.click sci.contains of course .click. So these will just basically click the test and then click the golf course. And I'm actually going to pass the tag force it's true. So it'll click it even though if it's not visible at the moment. And then the next thing I'll do is now I'll use the sci.fixture and we're going to pass in the file country.json. And then we'll do then our data. Actually, we'll do then data. This one is sci.get select Mexico sci.get select should have value Mexico. And then we'll have basically the sci.XPath. And then what we'll actually do is I'm actually just going to copy 2 lines over because this is a lot of stuff with XPath, and I don't want to mess up the XPath. So right here, I'll actually just pass in this. So we'll click this button with the XPath right here. We'll click that, and then we'll basically look for these things to see if they contain data.mexico. And remember that this is what it looks like. We're looking for this country club, and we'll see if it contains that. So this is one of the first things we'll do. Another way you can actually use this is you can actually, we can actually do this. What I'll do is I'll call it like this. So we have this, and we're basically calling upon login as tester. And in order to basically in order to have this, what we'll have to do next is we'll actually have to go to under support. So support commands, we'll have to create, basically, we'll have to create another function. And so the function I'll show you. So I'm going to copy and paste it over. So we'll create this function. So we have login tester, we'll define it. And basically it visits this web page, it grabs from this fixture file, and it takes the username from it and the password from it in order to input as email and import as password and for login. And so again, the next thing we'll have to do is we'll have to create this tester JSON file. And to create the tester JSON file, what we'll do is again, we'll go to the fixtures, we'll create a new file. It'll be called tester.json. And within that file, we'll basically copy this and paste this. These are just examples. Class save that. We'll save all of these. And then now we can just try running it. So npx Cypress open. So there we go. And then from here, we'll just do E2E testing. We'll use Chrome. Then we'll go ahead and check out our different tests. So under my scripts, we have fixture. So this is the first one. Select the country from the fixture. This is login. So let's look at this. So first we visit the base URL. We click on test. We click on golf course, even though it's not visible. And then we're on our new page. So we grab this select button. We select Mexico from it. And then after selecting Mexico, we'll basically click on filter. And then within there, we'll basically see if we can find this specific golf course. And we do. So it contains it. For login, same thing. We start at base URL because we have before each, which brings us to the base URL. We go to this URL afterwards. And then we input our username and password and we log in. So yeah, so that's Fixtures. I hope you found this video helpful. If you like this video, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for listening. In today's video, we're going to talk about data-driven testing with Cypress Automation Testing. So data-driven testing is a software testing approach where test cases are designed based on different sets of data rather than fixed inputs. It involves executing the same test script with multiple data sets to validate the behavior of the application under various conditions. The purpose of data-driven testing is to increase test coverage, identify potential defects, and verify that the application functions correctly with different input values. So benefits of data-driven testing. It has improved test coverage. So with a wide range of input data, more scenarios are covered, increasing the chances of finding defects. Reusability. By separating test data from test scripts, datasets can be reused across different tests, saving time and effort. Scalability. It is easier to scale data-driven tests to handle larger datasets without modifying the test scripts. Some more benefits include maintainability. Changes in test data can be made independently of test scripts, making maintenance more straightforward. Flexibility. Testers can quickly add new test data to verify additional scenarios. Data-driven testing is particularly useful when an application has a large set of test cases with similar functionalities and when there is a need to validate various combinations of input data. By adopting this approach, software testing becomes more efficient, effective, and adaptable to changing requirements. So these are two ways that we can perform data-driven testing. Sci.fixture, which reads a file within your fixture folder, or sci.readFile, which can read files anywhere in your directory. So now I'm going to show you how you can implement those two methods in your own code. So within my scripts right here, I'm going to create a new file. And the file I'm going to call is going to be data-driven. So I'm going to go ahead and say data-driven.cy.js. And now within this file, I'm going to show you the two different methods that we can use. We can use sci.readFile or sci.fixture. So before I do that, let me import a few things. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to require Cypress.XPath. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start writing our code. So I begin with the scribe, Cypress test. And I missed a little syntax error right. There we go. And then the next thing I'll do is I'm going to have a before each. So this basically executes this before running any of the individual functions later on. So before each. So the first thing for before each is I'm going to visit our base URL. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have viewport. So what this does is this sets the base, the width and the height of our dimensions of our window. So I'm going to set 2800 by 1200. Following that, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my different functions. So the first one we'll define it like this. So this will be data-driven tests from CSV from CSV file using sci.read file. And this is how the syntax will look. And then from there, I'll do sci.once. So this will be uncaught exception. And we'll basically say that if this happens, so it's false. And then after that, I'm gonna have to create. I'm gonna pass a few different things to get to the URL that we want. So from the base URL, first thing we'll have to do is we'll have to find the button that contains test, and then we'll click that. The next thing we'll have to do is we have to find the button that contains golf _ course, and it's actually capital case there, so it's very important. And from that, we're also going to click it as well. But in this click, we're actually going to pass the tag force is true. And what this does is this basically makes it so that even if it's not visible, you're clicking that button. Now, after that, what we'll do is we'll do sci.read file now. So with the read file, we'll do like this. So I'm actually gonna I'm just gonna copy this instead so I don't mess up the path. But this is a CSV file within my computer. So go ahead and have it like that. So within my computer, CSV file, we'll read that. And then what we'll do is we'll do then. And I'll pass basically countries. We'll have that, we'll create an array. So my array. And for this array, mess with the syntax, constant my array. And for this array, we'll basically do countries.split. And we'll split the countries within the CSV based off of this special character, which is an enter. And so with that, the next thing we'll do is we'll do a for loop. So for loops within Cypress. This is the syntax it follows. So for, we'll let I equals to 0. We'll do I is less than my array dot length. And we'll have to subtract 1 so that we don't have any index out of bounds errors. And then we'll increment it after each of this. And then we'll have this. And so within this for loop, for each of the country, we'll basically repeat the same steps. So the first step we'll do is we'll create a log. And this log will basically say testing, and then space, plus my array. And this is the first item within our array, or the I item within our array. And then we'll do sci.get, and then we'll do select. And we'll basically select my array. And then we'll trim this so that it removes any spaces within it. So it's actually just the characters only. And the next thing we'll do is we'll do sci.get, select, and then we'll do .should. And we'll basically check that have.value, my array, the ith element again, and then we'll trim that as well so that we're only comparing the characters. And then after that, I'm actually just going to copy and paste this. We're basically going to click a button, and then we're going to check if these contain basically this country that we passed in. So we're clicking the button based off XPath, and then we're seeing if this specific body right here, it contains this country that we pass in. So that's what we're doing for this one. So that's using the read file. You can do something similar using the using the fixture function. So again, I'm going to specify this function right here, and I'm just going to do data driven test from JSON file using sci.fixture, right? And after that, give me one sec. I will have to write some syntax. I'll actually just copy and paste this over because this goes to the same spot. It goes to the same page. So we'll basically pass uncaught exception. We'll click on those two to reach our URL. And then with that, what we'll basically do is instead, we'll use sci.fixture to pass in the golf.json. And then for that one, we'll then do this. So we'll do data like that. And then we'll have a for loop. So for let I equals to 0, I is less than data dot golf dot length I plus plus, and then we'll basically pass in this. So now within here, we're going to handle each of the elements within the JSON file separately. So before I do that, I'm just going to create that JSON file. So since we're using fixture, we have to read the JSON file from our fixtures folder. That's default. So within here, we'll create a new file and we'll call it golf.json. And within that, what I'll actually do is I'm going to paste over the golf.json. So this is what we have. We basically have the golf, and then we have this. So we have a list right here for golf. Go ahead and save this. We'll go back to our other test. And this time, what we'll do is we'll write out the rest of it. So in order to write out the rest of it, let's first do cy.log, and we'll pass in basically testing. Then the rest of this we'll basically do, we'll do testing, and then we'll pass data.golf, and then we'll actually do the ith index country. Country. The next thing we'll do is we'll log the next thing. So log testing, again, space, we'll plus data.golf, again, same the ith index, but this time we'll show what the name is. And then from there, well, basically I'll copy and paste some stuff over because this is using XPath. Again, so we'll go to right here and we'll type in the name of the golf course. We'll click the button to search for it, and then we'll see if the data contains the golf course.country right here. And then that's what we're basically doing. And so I can go ahead and save this. And then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and run this using npx cypress open. So with that, I'll go to E2E testing right here. After that, I will go to Chrome. I will open up our data-driven right here. And from here, we have our two different tests, from the CSV file using read file, and from this fixture using .fixture. And we can see that it was going through a loop of continuous actions. We had the before each, which basically brought it and set the viewpoint, and then we basically got to the for loop. So we had this, we went through the different clicks of the buttons. We got to here, we read this file, and then now we're just basically logging Australia, and then we're seeing if we can just filter by Australia and see if they contain Australia. After Australia was done, we went to Canada, and then we went to Colombia, and so on. So that's the first one. The second one was for the golf course. So we did the same stuff, but this time we're basically just typing Sky Golf Course, see if it contains Australia. ABC Golf Course, see if it contains United States. And then we have this country club right here, see if it contains some other, contains Mexico. And so that's what we did basically. If you found this video helpful, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for listening. In today's video, we're going to talk about accessibility testing using in Cypress Automation Testing. So accessibility testing is an important aspect of web and software development to ensure that digital products are usable by people with disabilities. Web content accessibility guidelines. These are guidelines that provide a set of criteria and success criteria for making web content more accessible. ACTS is a popular accessibility testing tool that automates the process of identifying and reporting accessibility issues on web pages. So here are some tips for running accessibility testing. First, you have to install Cypress ACTS. So in order to install Cypress ACTS as a dev dependency in your project, you use this command right here. The second thing you have to do is you have to configure Cypress ACTS in Cypress. And so in order to do this, what you'll first do is you'll open your support file and you'll add this line of code. The third thing you have to do is write accessibility tests using Cypress ACTS. And so in your test files, you can now use Cypress ACTS commands to inject and run ACTS accessibility checks. The two main commands are cypress.injectACTS and cypress.checkA11Y. So these are two main commands. And so cypress.injectACTS, this injects the Cypress accessibility testing library into the page. And this, on the other hand, runs the ACTS accessibility test and reports any issues found. Next, running accessibility test checks on specific elements. So you can narrow the accessibility checks to specific parts of the page, which can be useful for large pages or testing specific components. And this is an example of doing that. So you will get your main content, and then on your main content, you perform check.a11y. You can also customize accessibility checks with options. You can customize this by specifying ACTS options, specific impact levels, or excluding certain rules. And this is an example of doing that. You can also add assertions for accessibility violations. To automatically fail test when accessibility violations are detected, use assi.checka11y directly or add custom insertions for finer control. Some additional tips that we have for running accessibility tests are: run accessibility checks on key pages or components. Focus on main user flows or key components to make the testing more efficient. Integrate accessibility tests in CI. Automate accessibility tests and checks in your continuous integration pipeline to catch issues early. Review and address violations. Regularly review and fix accessibility violations to improve overall user experience. Using Cypress ACTS for accessibility testing in Cypress provides a powerful way to ensure that your application complies with accessibility standards. By integrating these checks into your test suite, you can catch and address accessibility issues early, making your application more accessible to all users. So now I'm going to show you how you can add accessibility testing into your own project. So right here we have something open. And the first thing we're going to do under this project is we're going to install the ACTS package. So go ahead and write this into your ACTS command. So I'm going to write npm install Cypress ACTS. So give it some time. So let me try that again. npm install Cypress ACTS like that. And so this might take a while. So I'm going to pause the video now and get back to you. And there we go. So it finished installing successfully. And now I'm going to go ahead and continue with the rest of the steps. So the first thing I'm going to go is I'm going to go under support. I'm going to go to E2E. And now I'm actually going to import the command so that we can use the ACTS. And so what I'm going to do is under this import.commands, I'm going to write import Cypress ACTS. There we go. and go ahead and save this. And now I can go ahead and write my own accessibility test. So within my scripts folder, I'm going to create a new script. And I'm going to name it accessibility.js. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start writing the script. So first, let's go ahead and do describe. And how am I going to describe this? Well, I'm going to write accessibility testing with Cypress X. And I'm going to write a before each function. And what this will do is this will make it so that it runs this before every time a function is ran. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to visit a website, and in this case we're going to use Google. And so this is being a little bit dot visit https .ca. And so this will help us visit Google. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to inject Axe. And so what this does is this begins accessibility testing. And now we can write each individual function. And so let's begin with our first function. And we'll use this command it. It dot, and then so IT, and this will be should have no detectable accessibility violations. And so this one will be basically what we're going to do is we're going to test the accessibility test on google.com. And so since Google is very, very well optimized, there should be no problem with accessibilities on Google. And so I'm going to go ahead and create that. So I'm going to do sci.log and then sci.check a11y, that, and then we'll run accessibility checks on Google. Now, the second one we're going to do is we're going to run accessibility checks on a few other websites. And so let's define our function, and this will be filtering accessibility issues by impact level. And so this will be sci.log, sci.check a11y, and now this will perform accessibility checks, and we're going to have pass null. And then what we'll do is this, and we'll do included impacts, and then we have it like that, and then we have critical, be passing critical, and we'll leave it like this. And so what this does is this runs accessibility check on the entire page, and it'll basically filter by impact level. So this is both for google.com so far. And now what we can do is we can perform accessibility checks on specific parts of a web page. And so what we can do is we can do should check specific section for a11y violations. And so let's do that. Sci.get, this is dot dash select, or just dot select. Dot then. So using the select, we're going to perform some accessibility checks on this. So sci.log, sci.check a11y, select on the select element, and we'll basically run accessibility checks on this. Next, we will do some more accessibility checks. So what we're going to do is we're going to run accessibility checks without failing the test. And so let me write another one. So should log all violations without failing the test. And so what we have is we'll do side.check a11 null null. And what we'll do is basically violations. This will pass in violations. We'll say that violations dot for each. A violation will basically do side.log. And then what we'll do is we'll pass in dot impact. We'll do this dot impact. Dot impact is this, and this is v dot description. Path and a tilde, and notice that this is a tilde and not a quotation mark, and then we'll do that. And so this should handle each violation without failing the task. So now I'm going to go ahead and save this. And in order to run this, I will basically use my command npx Cypress open. Allow that. Go ahead and go E2E testing. I'll select Chrome and give it some time. And then I'll go down to my test that I ran. So it's under my scripts accessibility. And it'll go through each of the tests individually. And so we begin, and we'll go through each of these individually. So it's done running all 4 of these tests, and we see some errors, so we'll go through each of these individually. So right here for our first test, we expected no accessibility issues with Google. But what we found was when we ran accessibility test on Google, so we basically went to Google, we performed this accessibility test, we actually found 5 accessibility violations with Google. And that's something that we found. The second thing what we did was, again, we went to Google. And again, what we did was we basically let me open this up. What we did, the second one was we filtered accessibility issues by impact level right here and right here. And then we found that when we filtered for critical impact levels, we didn't find any critical violations in this one. So in this one, what we did was we filtered for critical ones. Now in the third one, what we did was we went to a specific section to look for a violation. And so let's see, in the third one, we went to right here, we found the specific section, select, which is something on the page, and then we found that the element select was actually not found. And so this is actually something that is interesting. So I'm going to look at this again, but let's look at the fourth one first. The fourth one, we were basically logging all the accessibility issues right here. And it shouldn't fail the test after each issue. So let me open this up. And again, it's going through the 5. It found 5 accessibility violations, and it will go through each of them. And if we find this, okay, and so for that select issue, I found that I actually forgot to visit a different URL, and we're actually looking for the select element on this URL. So our base URL, and then to golf. So I go ahead and save this, and it'll automatically update on our Cypress. And so let's find this. And what I'll do is we will go up to accessibility right here. We'll go back to accessibility, and we'll see if it has any issues. And so we see we visit golf, we get the select element, and then what we find is we find some other accessibility issues right here on this page now. And so, yeah, main problem with these accessibility issues is the logs are something that you have to look through very carefully. But this is the general idea, is that you can visit your URL of interest, and then you perform accessibility testing on your URL of interest using this command. But remember that we used inject_ax right here in order to inject and begin our URL, our ax testing, accessibility testing for each of them. But that's this video. I hope you found this video helpful. Please subscribe to our channel and like this video for more content. Thank you. In today's video, we're going to talk about running Cypress in command line, using Mochawesome reports, and also performing test retries in Cypress Automation Testing. So, first, to run Cypress in the background and to run Cypress tests in the background, for example, in a headless mode, you can use Cypress's CLI with the headless flag. Running tests in headless mode allows the test to execute without launching the full browser UI, making it ideal for continuous integration environments or background testing on your local machine. So in order to do this, typically what we do is we use npx cypress run. But instead, what this will do is this will run all the tests in the E2E folder and output the results to the terminal. You can run a Cypress headlessly using the headless command. So instead, you just simply add the headless flag when running Cypress run. And so this is what it would look like. npx cypress run -- headless. And then you can specify a browser for headless mode as well. So you can specify which browser Cypress should be used when running in headless mode. For example, Chrome, Firefox, or Electron browser, which is the default. And so this is what it will look like if you use the browser Chrome, Firefox, and Electron. So you can also run specific Cypress tests in headless mode. So if you want to run a specific test file or a subset of tests, you can use the spec flag, followed by the path to the test file. So this is what it will look like. npx cypress run headless spec is the fixture.cy.js file. So you're just running this file. And this is some more examples that you can use to run two files at once. This is another example to run all the files within your script folder. You can also enable screenshots on failed Cypress tests, so that once it fails, it takes a screenshot automatically for any failed test in the headless mode. These are saved in the Cypress screenshots folder by default. You can also enable video recording by default. Cypress records videos of tests in headless mode and saves them in the Cypress video folder. You can configure this in cypress.config.js. And so in this one, this is how you can configure it. You're going to enable video recording and screenshot captures on test failures. There's also another thing called Mochawesome reports. And what this does is this basically creates a report based off of your headless runs. And so again, you would have to use a config file, and you would use this command to install the package. And within your config file, you would have to set these following commands and these following things. And to run it in command line, you would use this command right here. There's also test retries. Cypress excels at testing complex systems. However, there are still behaviors that are hard to verify and make tests flaky and fail due to unpredictable conditions. Some common race conditions that could result in unreliable tests include animations, API calls, test server database availability, resource dependencies availability, network issues. With test retries, Cypress is able to retry failed tests to help detect test flakiness, and continuous integration build failures. By doing so, this will save your team valuable time and resources so you can focus on what matters most to you. And within your config file, you can determine how many retries you want to use. Okay, so I reran it and I found that actually you don't need to include the force tag and the save dev tag. So I ran it again without those two tags right here, and I just did npm install Mochawesome, Mochawesome-merge, Mochawesome-report generator. And there we go. So we have this generated and we have this package installed now. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to show you how you can run Cypress using the headless mode in your command line. And so what this does is this avoids you from creating and opening up a new browser and having to run Cypress within that browser and so on. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you how you can do that. So what you'll actually have to do is you'll have to go to your command line here, and in your project you'll just type npx cypress run -- headless. And that's all you have to do. For me, I'm going to specify that the browser we're using is Chrome. And with that, you can go ahead and run this. And you see it's running 29 different tests right here. And it's basically going through all of these different tests that we have. For example, it went through getting started. So this number 1 right here. It'll go through all the folders of tests that we have, and it'll run through each one of them. You can also specify specific ones that we talked about, and I'm actually just going to stop this because this is running too much. So I'm actually going to say, hey, I don't want to run all of that. I want to run a specific one. So I'm going to use a specific tag, and I'm going to say that I want to run Cypress -E2E. That's not right. I actually want to run Cypress -E2E -my scripts. And I'm going to say I actually want to run idiom lucid or fixture. Let's say I want to run fixture.cy.js. I can type in this and go ahead and press enter, and this will run it in the command line. And you see it's running it. It'll go through fixture. And it will run this in the command line. Now, some things that you can do, for example, if you want to make it so that it automatically takes video recordings and screenshots, some things that you can do is you can configure your file and your folder. So go ahead and go to cypress.config.js right here. Under this, you want to start configuring your project. And so what I would do is let's actually go to here, and I'm just going to add below it. So I'm going to go ahead and add a few things. So the first thing I'm going to say is, let's say video. I want to set video as true. So I'll set that as true. So I'll take a video whenever there's an issue. And I also want to set, let's say I want to set screenshots as true. Then what I'll have to do is I'll have to say I'll have to set screenshots as true. So let me see how I can do that. Basically, I'm just gonna go back and check that out. And I'll go ahead and I'll do go under here. I'll type screenshot on run failure, and I'll set that equals to true. So that's true, and then I'll go ahead and finish that. There we go. I can save this and let me run something else that I think will fail. So I'll run accessibility tests. So I didn't mean to do that, but think that'll be fine. So now I'll run accessibility tests, and this one I know it's gonna fail. And so I'll let it run for a sec. And we see that we detected issues right here. And I can actually go ahead and stop this, but I'll actually let it finish running. But basically, we set in our config file saying that whenever there's an issue, we'll record a video and record a screenshot. And this by default will post into the videos folder right here, and also the screenshot folder right here, which takes a screenshot of the issue that you had. Whereas the video folder will take a video of the issue that you had right here. So this is a very neat thing that you can do. Now, let me show you how we can use Mochawesome reports as well, which is also a very convenient thing that you can use. So what I'll do is I'll actually go to our config file again, and this time what I'll say is I'll specify our reporter as Mochawesome, like that, and then I will basically have to do some settings for the reporter options right here, like that. And then I'll basically say that the report directory that we'll put it into is Cypress-results, like that. And then we have the overwrite. We'll set that as false. And then what we'll do is instead, we'll use HTML reports, and we'll say that we don't want any JSON reports. So JSON, we'll set that is equal to false, and then we'll have to put that there. And so this we can go ahead and save. And now in order to run this in our command line, we have to use the commands for Mochawesome. So we can go ahead and do that. So for example, for me, if I want to use this, I just say npx cypress run, and then we'll say that we want to use the reporter Mochawesome, and we want to run a specific one. So let's say we want to run my scripts. Within the my scripts, I want to run specifically, let's run something simple. So wait. Go ahead, press enter. And this will go ahead and finish running. And now once it's done running, it'll actually give you this little summary right here. And you can look at your reports in here for this awesome report. So it's an HTML file. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the path, and I'll open up a browser. And in the browser, I'll paste this HTML, and then you can open it up and you can see the report, which is what it looks like. So this is a really convenient little tool that you can use to run your tests and look at your tests when you run it in headless mode. Now, finally, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add something called retries. And retries is basically something that lets you run your test. And basically, by default, it makes your test repeat itself multiple times, so that, for example, sometimes like if an API call isn't working, it'll retry it multiple times until it works. And this time, I'm going to set the default retry into 2. Before it was no retries, so this time it'll retry twice before actually saying it failed. So let me run something that I think will fail. So for example, this accessibility test right here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to pass I'm going to run it using I'm going to run it using the reporter Mochawesome. And I'm not going to use a browser specification here. And this is what it'll look like. And now I'll go ahead and press enter. So give some time to run. So this time we know that this will have some failures, so it will retry multiple times to see how it does. So give it some time to run because for each of them, now it has to retry twice. And there we go, we finished running. It said most of them failed. Now I can go ahead and go to the reports right here and see what happens. So I'm gonna go ahead and save this, copy this path, open up another browser, paste this here, and here we go. So these are the errors that we had. And for each of them, it retried twice and it wasn't able to succeed. But yeah, if you found this video helpful, please give the videos a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next time. In today's video, we're going to talk about Cypress Automation Testing with Docker. Docker is a platform designed to make it easier to create, deploy, and run applications using containers. Containers allow developers to package an application and its dependencies into a standardized unit for software development, which includes everything needed to run it: code, runtime, system tools, libraries, etc. Consistent testing environments. Docker ensures consistency across environments by encapsulating the testing setup, dependencies, and configurations within containers. This consistency minimizes issues related to differences between development, staging, and production environments. Isolation and reproducibility. Each test can run within its isolated container, ensuring that the test environment is reproducible and separate from other test runs. This isolation prevents interference between tests and enhances reproducibility. So here are some features of Cypress testing within Docker. Scalability. Docker enables easy scaling of test automation by allowing the quick deployment of containers. Tests can run in parallel across multiple containers, facilitating faster execution and enabling efficient use of resources. Easy setup and configuration. Docker simplifies the setup process for Cypress automation testing. With pre-built Docker containers, images containing Cypress and browser configurations, setting up the testing environment becomes straightforward, reducing setup time and complexity. Resource efficiency. Docker containers have a minimal footprint and consume fewer resources compared to virtual machines. This efficiency allows for running multiple tests simultaneously on a single host without significant overhead. So let's talk about portability and reusability. Docker containers are portable, allowing the easy transfer of test environments across different machines or cloud services. This portability enhances the reusability of the testing environment, making it convenient for sharing among team members. Version control and image management. Docker provides version control for images, enabling easy rollback to previous versions if needed. It also allows for the creation of custom images, providing flexibility to tailor the testing environment as required. Integration with continuous integration pipelines. Dockerized Cypress tests integrate well with the continuous integration pipelines. The container-based approach allows seamless integration of tests into the build pipeline, automating test execution and enabling fast feedback on code changes. So, in order to download and install Docker, go to this link right here, which is docker.com/products-docker-desktop. Once you install this, you should pull some images. So this is a command that you can use to pull images. So for Cypress, you write docker pull Cypress and then included 12.12.0, and then you just write this in the command line. These are some other images that you can pull, but we won't be pulling in this video. And then once you pull the images, then you can run your Cypress tests in Docker. And so, for example, you can run these tests in your E2E folder by running this right here. And this will run all the my scripts within your E2E folder. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how you can do this on your own computer. So I already installed Docker Desktop right here, and I went to the Docker website, installed it and everything. I also pulled the image for our Docker within the command line. So this is the command that I ran. I ran this and then I followed the command line in order to pull the image. And so once I open up Docker Desktop, I can go to images and then I can see that the image that I pulled right here for Cypress is right here. So 12.12.0. It's a pretty big file, so it might take you a little bit of a while to download it. So I'm not going to do this again. But once you finish doing that, you can go to your command line again, and then you can run your code. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to copy the command over and then run and paste that into the command line. So I'm going to go ahead and paste this here. And we see that the command is basically docker run -it -v, and then we direct it to the directories containing the images as well as the scripts that we want to run for Cypress. And once we do that, we can go ahead and press enter. And we'll give it some time to run. But then after we wait for it to load, we go back to our Docker desktop here, and we actually go to containers. And within container, we find the container for Cypress. And so it's this one right here, pedantic LAN port. I go ahead and open that, and I press play. I don't need to press play, and we can see that it's running. And so within this Docker desktop, we can see that it's running. And so it goes through each of the Cypress tests and gives you feedback on how things are going. And so we can see that it's also giving us screenshots as well as video recordings and also some results summary. And so because I passed in all of the JavaScript, all of the Cypress files that I had within the directory, it's going to go through each of those individually. And we see that for the first one, it went through weights.cy.js, and now it's going through XPath. And after that, it'll go through accessibility, and it'll just go through every single one of them. And we see that this is all running within our Docker container. And so, for example, for this XPath right here, we see that it says all 4 things passed. We see that it created a Mochawesome report as well in this directory, and this is the name of the Mochawesome report. It also saved some results and gave us some summary of the results, saved a screenshot, it saved a video. There's no screenshots in this one, but in the previous one, it saved a screenshot. And then next we have accessibility one. We see that multiple different tests have failed, and that's because there's many accessibility violations within our test. And it'll also save the report, save screenshots, as well as save video recordings. And so it performs the same process for every single test within the folder that we passed over. And so we see that it's running, and we'll let it finish running, but that's the whole essence of using Docker. And it's very simple, very straightforward, and it's very easy to set up your environment using Docker. And yeah, so we see that it finished there. And yeah, so that's how you can run your own command in Docker. So to summarize, the first step is to download Docker Desktop, then to pull the images using the Docker commands, and then to basically using the Docker commands, so using this command to pull the Cypress image, and then run the Docker code within your command line and open up the container in Docker Desktop. If you found this video helpful, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you. In today's video, we're going to talk about using Lighthouse in Cypress Automation Testing. So before we start, let's give some introduction about what are some factors that impacts the user experience on a web page the most. So what we found is the speed it takes to load a page affects 75% of users. We also found that how easy it is to find what you're looking for affects 66% of users. We found that how well the screen of the site fits within your screen, for example, if you're using mobile, desktop, or iPads or tablets, affects 61% of users. We also found that how simple the site is also affects 58% of the users. How attractive the site looks affects 24%. And so next, let's talk about Lighthouse and how that affects what we're looking at. Lighthouse performs a series of audits on a web page. It simulates real-world scenarios on various devices and network conditions, and then generates a report with scores and detailed information on different aspects of the page. Some of the metrics includes it evaluates the page load speed, time to interact, the accessibility for different types of users with disabilities, the adherence to best practices, and other features like offline support and installation capabilities. It has become a valuable tool for web developers and website owners who want to ensure the websites are optimized and accessible and user-friendly. Lighthouse is an open source tool and a part of the Google Developer Tools suite. It is designed to improve the quality and performance of web pages by providing audits, insights, and diagnostics. Lighthouse can be used to test web pages against a set of best practices, performance metrics, and other guidelines to assess their overall quality and identify areas for improvement. The primary focus of Lighthouse is on web performance, accessibility, progressive web app compliance, best practices, and search engine optimization factors. It generates comprehensive reports with actionable recommendations to help developers optimize their websites and create a better user experience for their visitors. So, how do you get Lighthouse? Well, first use npm install Cypress Lighthouse to install the package. And then you can update your Cypress config file by adding these lines for Lighthouse. And then later we'll show you how we add these lines into our config file. But essentially you're requiring Lighthouse here, and then you're also registering the Lighthouse task here and preparing the browser for the Lighthouse audits later on as well. So a chaining component with results of the Lighthouse audit in tests. So this is an example. You would import the Lighthouse commands, and then you would configure it using these right here. I just wanted to add that if we go back to this page, these are actually the cutoffs that you set for Lighthouse. And so for example, this is the cutoff for metrics. So if it gives a score less than 80, then it won't pass. And this is the cutoff for accessibility. So we require 100 score for accessibility, and so on for best practices, SEO, and so on. I'll show you this a little bit later on in the video when we implement this into our code. So now I'm going to show you how you can set up your own Cypress Lighthouse program within your own project. So before I start editing some code, the first thing I have to do is I have to install npm Lighthouse. And so for what you can do is you can go ahead and you can run this command, npm install Cypress Lighthouse. And you can go ahead and follow the instructions and install it. For me, if you are similar to me and you had some issues with it, you can just force by using the force tag, and this might create some vulnerabilities within your packages. But for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm just going to do that for now. And next, what you can do is you can go to your cypress.config.json file, .javascript file, and what you'll do is you'll insert a few lines so that you can run Lighthouse. And so I'm going to go ahead and put that line of code right here, and it'll be basically using Lighthouse, and will require this Lighthouse right here. The next thing that you have to do is under setup node events, you have to paste some code over. And so let me go ahead and do that. Basically, you have to paste these lines of code here, which basically use Lighthouse, and then before a browser launch, it'll allow you to do a bunch of things. And basically, it registers Lighthouse task and it prepares the browser for Lighthouse audits. Once you have these in your config file, you can go ahead and create your own Lighthouse script. So right here, I'm going to create a new script, and I'm going to name it lighthouse.cy.js. And then in this script, I can now write some code. So the first line will be importing the package. So I'm going to go ahead and write import cypress-audit lighthouse-commands. And then once I have that, now I can go ahead and write some code. So first I'm going to start with describe, and then this will be Cypress test using Lighthouse. Now after that, I'm going to write my first function, which basically will be Lighthouse check scores on Google. And so basically I'll be running Lighthouse on the Google homepage to see how it performs. And then, so I'll do this once on call exception. I have false. And then I will do, I'll visit the Google website. And so I'll have https www.google.com. And then once I visit that website, I will now set some metrics that I will have in order for the test to pass. And so now you can basically set the cutoffs. And so I'm just going to paste it over because there's quite a bit to write. But you just do cypress.lighthouse, and then you just write, so I want performance to be at least an 80 score, accessibility to be at least an 85, best practices 95, SEO 75, and then some of these other things. And so for this, since we're using Google, this should be very optimized, and so this should pass. I'm going to add a second test to show you what it would look like if it fails. So I'm going to go ahead and write I'm going to go ahead down here, and I'm going to go write it, Lighthouse, check scores on golf page. And I'm going to do, again, side once, on call exception, visit, so this will be the base home URL, which we set in our page as this golf page on this ADM Lucid website. And so in order to get to the golf page, which was what we want to test, we're going to do a series of commands, basically. The first is we're going to use site.contains to find the button that contains tests. Click that. We're going to use contains to find the button that contains golf_course, and click that even if it's not visible by using the force is equal to true tag. Now after that, now we're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and paste over some metric cutoffs for Lighthouse. So paste that over. Basically, we require 80 performance, 85 accessibility, 95 best practices, SEO, PDW, and so on. So now I can go ahead and save this. And in order to run this, I'll just run npx. I'll just run npx Cypress open. And there's some issue with the config file right here. And so let me go see what the problem is. So I'm going to open up the config file right here. And we see that we're having some issues with this line right here. So it seemed like there was a dependency issue for that Lighthouse package. And so I wasn't able to figure it out. So I actually resetted my project and I did a new project and I wrote the code into a different project. And I have the same code here. I'm using the Cypress Lighthouse, and I just used npm Lighthouse installation. And I have the same code for this right here, exact same everything. And this time when I run, I should be able to see that it works. So I'm going to go ahead and run npx Cypress open. And this time it'll open a browser, and I'll go ahead and click E2E testing. I'll use Chrome. And I'm just going to minimize these two so you can see the one we want to run. We want to run Lighthouse. And within this, it'll basically test, for example, in the first test, we're testing Google. So it's testing it through different browser settings. For example, this would probably be for something like a mobile device or something. And it'll test different sizes of it as well. It'll also test the golf page, which is this page on this website. And so it's going to test a variety of different metrics, for example, accessibility, SEO, and load time and so on. And so give it some time to run. And here, it's all done. So if I go back to Google, as expected, everything passed. It was able to meet all of the metrics that we set in Lighthouse. And so we didn't get any errors here. And so example for right here, it says that the performance record is 90 and the threshold we set was 80. Accessibility was 90, threshold was 85. Best practices 100, threshold was 95. But if we go to our golf page, on the other hand, we see that it doesn't meet the threshold that we set. Accessibility was 78, best practice is 75, SEO was 74, but these thresholds were set as much higher, and so it didn't pass and it gave us an assertion error. And so that's basically how you can use Lighthouse to perform accessibility testing on your own website. And this is the code that we have. It's very simple, it's very easy to do. If you found this video helpful, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for listening. Look forward to seeing you next time.